Hello, this is Ole from AFSKY, and you're listening to What's Metal.
All right, I think it's probably like 4 or 5 years since we met when you were on tour with Spectral Wound.
Yeah.
And at the time, I kind of like had to coerce you a little bit to do a radio interview because you weren't used to kind of like attention, let's say. So what has changed since last time?
I don't know. Maybe I found out it's not that scary actually to just share your thoughts. I don't know. That felt a little bit more scary in the beginning, and therefore it was just easier to do it in writing. Then you have better time to think about your answers, and obviously you want to give some good answers, or I do, because the project matters to me. So if people want to know something about it, then I would like to give them my honest thoughts on the issue. So yeah.
Since we spoke, actually, at a certain point, I believe when your second full length was released, the attention somehow exploded in a way, right? Did this come as a surprise, and if yes, why?
Yeah, of course it came as a surprise, but a very good one, of course. I was very happy with the response that the record got, and also felt like this kind of took AFSKY a little bit to the next level, where maybe a couple more doors opened regarding shows that we can play, and yeah. So I was surprised, but in a very good way, of course. I was very happy about it.
Well, what I refer to as more attention did not stop, at least in my view, with the metal scene, right? At least in Denmark, there was quite some attention by the more, let's say, mainstream or broad media that reaches like a more general audience. Yeah. Where is the link there? Like, how did they pick up on it? Was it due to the content of the second album? Or?
Yeah, I think both that, but also maybe because of my old band that I was in, Solbrød. That got some attention because, yeah, you know, we didn't invent, or what do you say? In Danish you say I didn't invent the deep plate to eat off. But, and we didn't with that band, but it got some attention also in the mainstream media. Maybe because of the lyrics, and I think that was the same thing with this album. Well, I used, you know, the great Danish national poet Hans Christian Andersen, and used some of his stuff, and I think that also helped draw some attention to people that don't listen to metal. And maybe that was an interesting way for them to, okay, who's that young guy singing about? Oh, not that young. Not that young anymore, but yeah, who's that guy playing this weird kind of music that mainstream people would normally not listen to, and at some point you make a link to them. I don't know if that is the thing that happened, but I think that the Danish poet's lyrics that I used also had something to do with it. And of course, I think it's some good songs that I wrote, but yeah.
But it's probably that you need to ask some of those mainstream reporters or press representatives, because sometimes I don't know how they pick it up. I mean, maybe one more aspect was the visual link through, yeah, like some. Well, I mean, it was an old painting, right? But very, very iconic in a way. You know, when this came out, even in the metal scene, I thought that. I know it's just so powerful. Yeah, maybe you can explain this to our listeners or describe it.
Yeah, well, the cover, if you haven't seen it, it's an empty field. It could be very early spring before the plants start growing, or it could be in fall, where we have to make the last harvest. And there's a man lying. You don't know if he's dead or if he passed out from working, but it had definitely something to do with him just being old and work too much. And there's a woman leaning over him, screaming for help, probably. And yes, it is a very powerful painting. What I didn't know at the time is, because I didn't go to school in Denmark when I grew up. I grew up in Germany, and a lot of people knew this painting because it was part of school repertoire and in the Danish and history lessons. But I didn't know that, so I think a lot of people, when they saw the album cover, at least in Denmark, already had seen it before, and yeah.
Is that not some?
Then already you have some connection. Oh, what is that? And you memorize it because you have seen it before. So,
does it sometimes feel strange to be, at least for a certain period, to be a stranger in your own country? Because I mean, yeah, as you said, you spend time in Germany, right?
I spent 20 years in Germany, living in the Danish community in Flensburg. And I always felt very Danish, I guess, if you can say that. But I also grew up in a small community. Not always easy, but after I moved to Denmark, I feel just as much German, to be honest. I feel really equally at home in both places, Denmark or Germany, which is just great. That's really nice. I really like Germany a lot.
So with the attention obviously comes, let's say, demand, in whatever physical copies or pieces that you sell as merchandise and so on. I mean, how do you cope with that? Is it still easy going, or is there so much attention that sometimes you start to struggle? I'm asking this because you're doing a lot of DIY stuff still, right?
Yeah, I like to do stuff myself. Vendetta, they have released my music on CDs and vinyl records. But beside that, everything else, that's myself who does that. I take the photos and write the music, record the music, mix the music. The few small videos that I made or used was made by me, and yeah, I just like it. I drew the logo myself, so yeah, I like to do these kind of things. And I have a project where I can put all of the stuff in that I like. Writing with a nice handwriting, writing music, taking photos of nature, and all these things kind of fits into the project. So it's really perfect in many ways, I think. Yeah. A good way to spend my time, I think.
Last time we spoke, I also referred to the more acoustic interludes that you had on the first full length. Well, in the meantime, you recorded a full acoustic release as well. Yeah. I mean, was it something that you had to get off your chest, or what was the trigger for this?
Yeah, actually, now I just released the new album Om 100 år, in 100 years. And originally the plan was to release both this album and the acoustic EP at the same time, or maximum with a week in between. So either one of them would come kind of as a surprise release, but due to the corona and long waiting times at the pressing plants and all that kind of things, then it just took much longer time. And we were also at the same time we had written the album, but Hildekvad, the project that I have with Simon and Simon, that are live players in AFSKY. And we were about to release that record, and also I was still in my old band, Solbrud. So I was working on 4 albums and releases at once, and it just became too much. So I had to pick, and then I chose to release the acoustic first, and then the other album after that.
But are they?
It was actually only meant just to be a small thing, to come on as a side project to the full album. But it ended up being something else.
But is there content-wise somehow a link, or are they totally independent?
Well, there is a melody on the acoustic album that you can find on Om 100 år also. So people can see if they can find it.
I have to try to pick it out, because I mean, let's talk about the current album, which has been available at least online since a couple of days, and I only had time to listen to it once, to be honest. Yeah. So I couldn't totally immerse myself in it from my point of view. Well, once you're familiar with the band, it kind of like you're immediately back into the flow, or in the flow. But obviously, you need to give it some spins so that you can fully familiarize with it. I just think that I don't know. It just feels more natural somehow. I don't know why that is, but is that something that you feel as well, or is it my impression just from the first listen?
Well, there's one thing obviously that is more natural to me, and that is I wrote all the lyrics for this album myself and made them kind of very personal, and also, yeah, I don't know. I had this thing that I wanted to try and make an album that is, because most black metal and metal is always the violence and anger cliche, you know. Not that it's bad. It's a good way to get your frustrations and that out. But the first song I wrote was actually I used the lyrics. Was a poem that I wrote to my grandma when she died. And I ended up putting music to that. And that kind of also started the project that I wanted to do, a whole album where I don't sing about negative things or things that I hate or that I'm bothered by. So I tried to make an album with all the things that I will miss once I'm dead. So in that way, it ended up being a very personal album, and yeah, also the most worked through album, I think.
So this poem, I'm curious now, did I get this right? I mean, you wrote it because your grandmother was dying. Did she actually see it or hear it?
No, because she was dead at the moment when I wrote it. But it put a lot of thoughts in my head that there was also the last grandparent that I had. And when she died, I had this feeling, damn, there were so many things that I should have asked her, and you know, the time she experienced in Second World War, and you know, she lived in a whole nother time before me, and that was first after she died that I sat and thought, man, there were so many questions that I just should have asked, but that I didn't, and that I put a lot of thoughts in my head, and yeah, that's how the album started, really.
So besides grief, you also feel a lot of regret, or how can I take this?
Yeah, there's actually also a bit of regret on the album, but mostly, and it's not even grief, I would say. It's more like I have said in another interview in writing, you can call it a bit like a celebration to life, which is probably very not typical black metal to choose that. But again, why not? There are no rules. I can do what I want, and I wanted to do that. See how that works, and I never felt so much than when I wrote this album. Much more than I had much more feelings in me than writing the other album. So yeah,
it's kind of like setting a contrast, I find, actually, to the first time that we spoke, because actually the headline that we put over the interview when we announced it online was more like something like "Longing for Death?" ? Yeah. But even you were, I mean, you weren't sure about this actually. But when
now you can say "Longing not to die." Yeah. In some way, yes. Yeah. You know,
what
life can suck, but life is also what you make out of it. You know, you can be in a shitty situation where you can't choose, but on the other hand, yeah, I try to live my life so that it makes purpose to me, and yeah, and I can look back one day when I'm dying and say, did I regret anything that I did? No. And did I try everything that I wanted to try? Hopefully yes. So that's what I'm aiming for. Yeah.
I'm not sure if our listeners picked this up, but when we started talking today, I think you referred to AFSKY still as a project, right? Yeah. So I mean, where do you see the boundary between a band or a musical outlet being a project or being a band? I mean, where is the border?
I think to me the main difference is you have to be more than one person to call it a band. You know, so when the songwriting process is me sitting at home in my couch with an acoustic guitar and a cup of coffee or something, then yeah. And I know there's the term one-man band, but you could also call it that. it makes no difference really. Yeah, I just always refer to it as my project. Yeah, that I work on. Maybe because I also do, the photos, the small videos, and that. So to me, it's not only about the music, but also trying to put all the other things into the band. Now I call it the band. Put it into the project that I like, and share that. If I can inspire some people to get them a better life, I don't know, then that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the show because I'm really curious about how the new songs will come across. Yeah. Especially because tonight, lights and sound will be phenomenal. Yeah, as you might have experienced yourself already.
It looks really good already. Yeah. We're playing 2 of the new songs, not the whole album. Yeah. I thought maybe people wanted to hear some of the old stuff, and I have to go and pack, put up the stage in a couple. Yeah.
So you got a reminder on your phone, just like a buzzer, or
because Simon came in and we have a sound check in 10 minutes. Okay. So I have to carry some stuff down so I can be ready, I think.
Okay. So let's wrap this up. So the final questions that we always ask is always the same. The show is called What's Metal? What is metal? Yeah. You answered this last time around already, so yeah. I'll just ask you, what's metal, and you say fuck off, okay? Because we already have the answer, okay?
I don't remember that. Yeah,
okay. So what's metal? What's metal?
What's metal? It's metal not to care what other people think. Just be yourself, and fuck what other people think. Don't tread on anyone's shoes, but just be yourself, and it sounds like a super cliche, but really, yeah.
All right. So
don't try to be something you're not. Just relax and be yourself. Yeah.
So with this, you're released to prepare for the show. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome, man.